It was a bright, sunny Saturday morning in Maple Grove. This was a quiet little neighborhood where kids like me loved to play outside. You could hear birds chirping in the trees and see squirrels running around. It was the kind of place where nothing big usually happened, at least, that's what everyone thought. But today was different. Today was the day I'd never forget, and it all started with me, just a regular 12-year-old kid, sitting on the sidewalk with my bucket of chalk. I had a big imagination, and I loved drawing stuff. That morning, I grabbed my chalk, bright colors like red, blue, yellow, and green, and started making pictures right there on the sidewalk in front of my house. I drew rainbows that stretched all the way across, with big, fluffy clouds at the ends. Then I added some goofy dinosaurs, ones with silly smiles and wiggly tails. I even gave one a hat, just for fun. The sidewalk was turning into my own little art show, and I was having the best time ever. That's when she showed up. Her name was Karen, and oh boy, she was trouble. Around here, everyone called her the HOA Queen. HOA stands for Homeowners Association, which is like a group of grown ups who make rules for the neighborhood. Karen acted like she was the boss of everything. She'd walk around with her nose in the air, telling people what to do. Cut your grass, she'd yell at Mr. Thompson. Your dog's too loud, she'd snap at Mrs. Lee. She thought she owned every inch of the street, and she wasn't afraid to let you know it. So there I was, coloring away, when I heard her loud voice. "Hey, you," she barked. I looked up and saw her standing there, hands on her hips, staring down at me like I'd done something terrible. Her face was all scrunched up, and her eyes were narrow, like she was mad at the world. "That chalk is an eyesore," she said. "It's against the rules." I blinked at her, confused. Rules? For chalk? Since when was drawing pictures a problem? I mean, it was just chalk. It washes away when it rains. Kids draw on sidewalks all the time. But Karen didn't care about that. She pointed at my rainbows and dinosaurs like they were the worst things she'd ever seen. "This street is supposed to look nice," she said, her voice sharp. "Not like some messy playground." I didn't say anything at first. I just sat there, holding my green chalk, looking at her. Most kids might have been scared of her yelling, but not me. See, here's the thing, she thought I was just some random kid. She didn't know I had a secret. Yup, a big, juicy secret up my sleeve, and it was about to make her wish she'd never messed with me. What was it? Oh, I'm not telling you yet. You've got to stick around, because the story is going to get so good, you won't believe it. Karen kept going, waving her arms like she was trying to shoo me away. "I'm sick of kids like you ruining everything," she said. "This is my neighborhood, and I make the rules." I tilted my head and watched her. She had on a bright pink shirt and big sunglasses perched on her head, even though she wasn't wearing them. Her hair was all puffed up, and she looked like she'd spent way too long getting ready just to yell at people. Now, let me tell you a little about me. I'm not super tall or super strong. I'm just a kid who likes drawing and riding my bike. My name's Alex, by the way. Hi. I've lived in Maple Grove my whole life, and most days, it's pretty boring. But I'm good at noticing things. Like, I notice when the mailman comes late or when the birds stop singing because a cat's nearby. And that morning, I'd noticed something about Karen, something she didn't want anyone to know. See, earlier that day, before I started drawing, I'd been riding my bike around the block. I zoomed past Karen's house, and her garage door was wide open. That's not normal for her, she's always super picky about keeping things neat. But there it was, open, and I saw something weird inside. Boxes. Lots of boxes, stacked up all messy like she'd been in a hurry. Some had labels on them, and one even said evidence. Evidence of what? I didn't know yet, but it stuck in my head like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. So when Karen started yelling at me about my chalk, I wasn't worried. I just kept sitting there, drawing a big goofy eye on my dinosaur. She didn't scare me, because I had that secret tucked away. And here's the best part, she had no idea what was coming. She thought she was in charge, but oh boy, was she wrong. This wasn't just about chalk anymore. This was about something way bigger, and it was going to turn her perfect little world upside down. "Hey, Karen," I said finally, looking up at her with a little smile. "It's just chalk. What's the big deal?" She huffed and crossed her arms. The big deal is that I don't like it, she snapped. And if I don't like it, it's got to go. She pulled out her phone and shook it at me. I'm calling the cops right now. They'll make you stop. The cops? Over chalk. I almost laughed, but I didn't. Instead, I shrugged and said, okay, go ahead. She glared at me, probably thinking I'd start crying or run away. But I didn't. I wasn't scared of her or her phone or even the police. Why? Because of that secret. It was like a superpower I hadn't used yet, and it was going to make this day one she'd never forget. Before we keep going, I've got a quick question for you. Have you ever had a neighbor like Karen? Someone who's always bossing people around? Tell me in the comments below, I want to hear your stories. Oh, and while you're at it, let me know where you're watching from today. Are you at home? School? Somewhere else? I'm curious. And if you like crazy stories like this, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. So there I was, sitting on the sidewalk, my chalk bucket next to me, watching Karen dial her phone. She thought she'd won already. She thought she could scare me off with one call. But here's the thing about secrets, they're like surprises you save for the perfect moment. And my surprise? It was coming soon. Karen didn't know it, but she'd just started a game she couldn't win. Karen wasn't a stranger to me. Nope, not at all. She'd been stomping around Maple Grove for months, acting like she was the big boss of everything. If a dog barked too loud, she'd yell at it. If someone parked their car even an inch too close to her driveway, she'd scold them like they'd broken some huge rule. She was always loud, always bossy, and always making sure everyone knew she was in charge. But today? Oh, today she picked the wrong kid to mess with. And that kid was me. I was still sitting there on the sidewalk, my bucket of chalk right next to me. I had my green chalk in my hand, adding a big, goofy tail to my dinosaur drawing. That's when Karen snapped at me again. I'm calling the cops, she said, her voice sharp and mean. She yanked her phone out of her pocket like it was some kind of weapon. She held it up high, waving it around, like she wanted me to be scared. But guess what? I wasn't. I just shrugged my shoulders and kept drawing. See, Karen thought I was powerless. She looked at me, a 12-year-old kid with messy hair and a chalk-covered shirt, and figured I had no say in anything. She thought she could boss me around, just like she did with everyone else. She smirked at me, that little grin on her face, like she'd already won. Then she started dialing 911. Yup, the real police. She pressed the buttons on her phone and held it to her ear, talking loud so I could hear every word. There's a kid out here causing trouble, she said into the phone. He's vandalizing the sidewalk with chalk. It's a mess. Total disorder. I almost laughed when I heard that. Vandalizing. Disorder. It was just chalk. I mean, come on, it's not like I was breaking windows or painting her house purple. It was just rainbows and dinosaurs, the kind of stuff that washes away with a little rain. But Karen didn't care about that. She kept going, making it sound like I was some big, bad troublemaker. I peeked up at her while she talked. She was pacing back and forth, her pink shirt flapping a little in the breeze. Her sunglasses were still sitting on top of her head, and her face was all red from yelling so much. She sounded so sure of herself, like she knew the cops would rush over and take her side. Yes, officer, she said into the phone. You need to come quick. This can't go on. Then she hung up and pointed at me. You're in big trouble now, kid, she said, her eyes all squinty and mean. But here's the thing, I wasn't scared. Not even a little bit. Why? Because I had something on her. Something big. See, earlier that morning, before all this chalk drama started, I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to see. And it was about Karen. She didn't know I knew, and that made me smile inside. What was it? Oh, I'm not spilling the beans just yet. You've got to wait a little longer to find out. But trust me, it was something she'd never want the police to hear about. Let's just say her perfect little life, the one where she acted like the queen of Maple Grove, was about to get super messy. I kept drawing, making my dinosaur's tail even longer. I added some stripes, too, because why not? Karen stood there, staring at me, probably waiting for me to cry or run away. But I didn't. I just kept going, calm as could be. You think this is funny, she snapped. You won't be laughing when the cops get here. I looked up at her and shrugged again. Okay, Karen, I said, real quiet. That made her even madder. She huffed and crossed her arms, tapping her foot like she couldn't wait to see me get in trouble. Inside my head, though, I was thinking about what I'd seen. That morning, I'd been riding my bike around the neighborhood, just having fun. The sun was up, the air was warm, and I was pedaling fast, feeling the wind in my face. That's when I rode past Karen's house. Usually, her place looked perfect, grass cut just right, no toys or bikes left out, everything super neat. But not today. Today, her garage door was wide open, and there was stuff everywhere. I slowed down my bike to look. Boxes, tons of them, were piled up inside. Some were falling over, spilling things out. I saw labels on them, too. One said fragile, like it had something breakable inside. Another said evidence, which sounded weird. Evidence? Like in a detective show? I didn't know what it meant, but it stuck with me. Why would Karen have boxes like that? What was she hiding? I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew it was something strange. And now, with her calling the cops, I started to wonder, would they find out, too? Karen didn't know I'd seen her garage. She didn't know I was onto her. She just kept glaring at me, thinking she had all the power. You're ruining this neighborhood, she said, her voice loud enough for the whole street to hear. Kids like you don't belong here if you can't follow rules. I didn't say anything back. I just picked up my yellow chalk and started coloring in my rainbow. That made her stomp her foot. Stop that right now, she yelled. I didn't stop. I kept drawing, nice and slow, like I didn't even hear her. Why? Because I wasn't afraid of her anymore. She could yell all she wanted, but I had that secret in my pocket, ready to pull out when the time was right. And the cops? If they showed up, they might just figure out what was going on with Karen. Her perfect little world was starting to crack, and she didn't even see it yet. The tension was building, like when you're waiting for a big surprise. Karen thought she was winning, but I knew something she didn't. Every time she opened her mouth, I got a little more sure of myself. She could call me names, she could call the cops, she could do whatever she wanted, but I wasn't the one in trouble here. She was. And soon, everyone would know it. So there we were, me on the sidewalk, chalk in my hand, and Karen standing over me, fuming. The birds kept chirping, the sun kept shining, but something big was brewing. She thought she'd caught me breaking her silly rules. She thought she could scare me off. But she didn't know the truth. She didn't know what I'd seen, or what was coming next. Her perfect little life? It was about to fall apart, and I was the kid who'd accidentally set it all in motion. What did I see in that garage? Why wasn't I scared? You'll find out soon, I promise. This story's just heating up, and it's going to get wild. Karen picked the wrong kid to mess with, and she was about to learn that the hard way. Stick around, you don't want to miss what happens next. Karen was still yelling into her phone, going on and on about how bad I was. She sounded like a broken record, repeating the same stuff over and over. He's ruining the sidewalk, she shouted. It's a total mess. I didn't let it bother me, though. I stayed calm and kept my cool. I picked up my yellow chalk and added a big, goofy smile to my dinosaur drawing. It looked silly and happy, with its wiggly tail and funny hat. I liked it a lot, even if Karen didn't. While I colored, I watched her out of the corner of my eye. She was pacing back and forth on the sidewalk, her feet stomping hard with every step. She looked all puffed up, like a balloon ready to pop. Her arms waved around, and her voice got louder and louder. They're on their way, she said, hanging up the phone. Then she pointed right at me, her finger shaking a little. The cops are coming, and you're in big trouble now. She acted like I was some kind of criminal mastermind, not just a kid with chalk. I didn't say much. I just nodded and said, "Okay, Karen." My voice was quiet, but inside, I wasn't worried at all. She thought she'd scared me, but she hadn't. See, I had something up my sleeve, something she didn't know about. And that's where the story starts to get juicy. Really juicy. You're going to love this part, so don't go anywhere. Earlier that day, before all this craziness with the chalk started, I'd been riding my bike around the neighborhood. The sun was shining, and the air felt warm on my face. I pedaled fast, zooming down the street, just having fun. That's when I rode past Karen's house. Usually, her place looked super neat, like, too neat. Her grass was always perfect, her windows were spotless, and her garage door was always shut tight. But not this time. This time, something was different. Her garage door was wide open. I slowed my bike down to peek inside as I rolled by. And wow, what I saw was strange. Really strange. There were boxes everywhere, tons of them, all piled up and spilling out onto the driveway. They weren't normal boxes, either. These weren't like the ones you use to move stuff or store old toys. Nope, these had weird labels on them. I saw one that said "Fragile Handle with Care" in big letters. Another one had "Evidence" written on the side. Evidence. Like in a mystery movie. That word stuck in my head, buzzing around like a bee I couldn't swat away. Evidence of what? I didn't know yet. My brain started spinning with questions. Was Karen hiding something? Was it something bad? I mean, who keeps boxes labeled "Evidence" in their garage? It didn't make sense, but I had a hunch, a little feeling in my tummy that it wasn't good. Whatever it was a secret, and I'd accidentally stumbled right into it. Now, back to the sidewalk. Karen was still glaring at me, her hands on her hips again. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" she said. "Well, you won't be smiling when the police get here." I didn't answer. I just kept drawing, adding some red stripes to my dinosaur's hat. She huffed and puffed, walking in little circles, muttering stuff under her breath. She was so sure she'd won already. She thought the cops would show up, see my chalk, and drag me away or something. But here's the thing, I wasn't scared of the cops coming. Not one bit. Why? Because of those boxes. That secret I'd seen in her garage was like a puzzle piece, and I was starting to figure out where it fit. With the police on their way, I started to wonder, would they see it too? Would they walk past her house, peek in that open garage, and spot those weird boxes? My heart beat a little faster just thinking about it. This wasn't just about my chalk anymore. This was getting bigger, and I could feel it. Karen didn't notice me watching her. She was too busy being mad. "This neighborhood used to be nice," she grumbled. "Now it's full of kids like you, making messes." I almost giggled at that. A mess? My rainbows and dinosaurs weren't a mess, they were awesome. But I didn't argue. I just kept my head down, coloring away, letting her rant all she wanted. Every word she said made me more sure that something big was coming. I thought back to that bike ride again. I remembered how messy her garage looked, like she'd been in a hurry to hide something. Those boxes weren't stacked neatly. Some were tipped over, and I'd even seen a little gadget poking out of one, like a phone or a remote or something. Why would Karen have stuff like that? She didn't seem like the type to collect gadgets. She was more the type to collect rules and yell at people who broke them. My hunch was growing stronger. Maybe those boxes weren't hers. Maybe she'd taken them from somewhere or someone. Maybe that's why one said "Evidence." Was she in trouble? Was she hiding something bad? I didn't have proof yet, but I didn't need it. I just needed to wait. The cops were coming, and if they saw what I saw, Karen's perfect little world might start to crumble. She kept pacing, her shoes clicking on the sidewalk. "You're going to learn a lesson today," she said, shaking her head. "No one messes with my rules." I nodded again, real slow, like I agreed. But inside, I was buzzing with excitement. This was like a game now, and I was one step ahead. She thought she was the smart one, calling the cops on me. But she didn't know what I knew. She didn't know what was waiting in that garage. The air felt thicker, like something huge was about to happen. I added a blue tongue to my dinosaur's goofy smile and glanced up at the street. No police yet, but they'd be here soon. And when they came, everything might change. Would they care about my chalk? Or would they care about those boxes? I had a feeling it'd be the boxes, and Karen had no clue what was coming. The police car rolled up to the curb, its red and blue lights flashing bright in the sunshine. I looked up from my chalk drawing and saw it parked right there on the street. Karen's face lit up like she'd just won a giant prize at the fair. She clapped her hands together and grinned, her eyes all big and excited. "Officers," she cried out, marching over to the car like she was the star of the show. She pointed at me, her arm straight out, and said, "This kid's defacing property. Look at this mess." 2 cops stepped out of the car. One was tall with a serious face, and the other was shorter, looking a little tired, like he'd been up all night. They both had on dark uniforms with shiny badges that glinted in the sun. The tall one glanced over at my sidewalk art, my rainbows and goofy dinosaurs with their wiggly tails and funny hats. He raised an eyebrow, like he wasn't sure what the big deal was. "This is what you called about?" he asked Karen, his voice low and calm. Karen didn't waste a second. She started ranting again, her words tumbling out fast and loud. Yes, she said, waving her hands around. "This kid's ruining the whole neighborhood. That chalk is everywhere, it's against the rules. You need to do something about it right now." She kept going, her voice getting higher and higher, like a squeaky toy being squeezed too hard. She was so busy yelling that she didn't even notice me sitting there, watching her with a little smile. But then I decided it was time to speak up. I put down my blue chalk and stood up, brushing the dust off my hands. "Hey, officers," I said, nice and clear so they could hear me. "While you're here, can you check Karen's garage? I saw some weird stuff in there earlier." My voice was steady, not loud or shaky. I didn't need to yell, I just needed them to listen. Karen's head whipped around so fast I thought it might spin right off her shoulders. Her eyes got huge, and her mouth dropped open like a fish gasping for air. "What are you talking about?" she screeched, her voice so high it hurt my ears. She took a step toward me, her hands balled into fists. "That's nonsense. You're making things up." She looked mad, really mad, but I could see something else in her face, too. She looked scared. And that made me even more sure I was onto something big. The cops didn't say anything at first. The tall one tilted his head, like he was thinking it over. The shorter one scratched his chin and glanced at Karen, then back at me. They didn't look mad or annoyed, they looked curious. "What kind of weird stuff?" the tall cop asked me, his voice still calm but with a little spark of interest now. I shrugged, playing it cool. "Just some boxes," I said. "They had funny labels on them. One said evidence. I saw them this morning when her garage was open." I pointed down the street toward Karen's house, just a few yards away. The garage door was still open, I could see it from where we were standing, with those messy piles of boxes spilling out. Karen started talking fast, her words tripping over each other. "That's ridiculous," she said. "He's lying. There's nothing in my garage. He's just a troublemaker." She flapped her arms like a bird trying to fly away, but the cops weren't listening to her anymore. The tall one nodded at the shorter one, and they both started walking toward her house. Karen's face went white, like all the color drained out of it. "Wait," she yelled. "You don't need to go there. This is about the chalk." But the cops kept walking, their boots thumping on the pavement. I stayed where I was, watching it all happen. My heart was beating fast, but I didn't show it. I just picked up my chalk again and added a little red nose to my dinosaur, like nothing big was going on. Inside, though, I was buzzing with excitement. This was at the moment everything would change. The officers got to Karen's garage and stopped. They peeked inside, leaning forward to get a better look. The tall one reached out and picked up a box, turning it so he could read the label. The shorter one pulled out another one, brushing off some dust. Then boom. The truth hit like a lightning bolt. The tall cop turned around, holding up the box, and looked right at Karen. "Ma'am," he said, his voice firm now, "what's all this?" Karen froze. She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't say a word. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The cops started pulling more boxes out, stacking them on the driveway. I could see stuff spilling out: phone chargers, a little speaker, some fancy shoes, even a toy robot. These weren't just random things. These were stolen goods. Turns out, Karen had been sneaking around the neighborhood, swiping packages right off people's porches. She'd been stashing them in her garage, thinking no one would ever find out. The tall cop shook his head. "This isn't about chalk," he said, looking at Karen. The shorter one stepped forward, holding up a box with evidence written on it. "Ma'am," he said, "we're not here for the kid. We're here for you. His voice was serious, and his eyes locked onto hers. Karen's knees wobbled a little, like she might fall over. She stammered, what? No. This is a mistake. But it was too late. The truth was out, and there was no hiding it now. I sat there on the sidewalk, my chalk still in my hand, watching it all unfold. My rainbows and dinosaurs didn't seem so important anymore, not compared to this. Karen had thought she could get me in trouble, but instead, she'd tripped right into her own mess. My chalk. It was nothing, small potatoes, like a tiny pebble next to a giant mountain. Karen's little crime spree. That was the real deal, and now everyone could see it. The cops kept digging through the boxes, pulling out more stuff: headphones, a blender, even a shiny watch. Neighbors started peeking out their windows, their faces full of surprise. Some stepped outside, whispering to each other, pointing at Karen. She'd been the one bossing them around for months, and now she was the one in trouble. Big trouble. Karen tried to talk her way out of it. I don't know how those got there, she said, her voice shaking. Someone must have put them in my garage. But the cops weren't buying it. The tall one pulled out a little notebook and started writing stuff down. The shorter one grabbed the radio from his belt and started talking into it, calling for backup or something. Karen's perfect little world was falling apart, and I'd helped make it happen just by saying one little thing. This was the big reveal, you guys. The moment everything flipped upside down. Karen thought she'd won, but she'd lost big time. And me? I was just a kid with some chalk who'd accidentally uncovered her secret. The cops weren't here for me, they were here for her. And oh boy, was that about to change everything. Karen's jaw dropped so low it almost hit the ground. She stood there, staring at the cops, her eyes wide and her face all pale. This is a mistake, she stammered, her voice shaky and loud. She waved her hands around, trying to explain. Those boxes aren't mine. I didn't do anything. But the cops weren't listening to her excuses. They'd seen the truth, and they weren't buying her story, not even a little bit. The tall cop shook his head and kept pulling boxes out of the garage. The shorter one helped, stacking them up on the driveway. They found all kinds of stuff: electronics like phone chargers and little speakers, clothes like fancy shirts and shiny shoes, and even a big, fancy blender someone must have ordered online. It was a pile of stolen goodies, right there in the open for everyone to see. Karen's secret was out, and there was no hiding it now. Neighbors started peeking out their windows, their faces full of surprise. Some opened their doors and stepped outside, whispering to each other. That's Karen. I heard one say. She's the one who's been taking our packages. They pointed and stared as the cops pulled out a pair of shiny handcuffs. Karen's eyes got even bigger. No, 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 she yelled, but it didn't matter. The tall cop grabbed her arms, clicked the handcuffs on her wrists, and there she was caught, right on her perfect green lawn. Me. I just sat back on the sidewalk, my chalk still in my hand. I picked up the green one and finished my dinosaur, adding a big, silly tongue to its goofy smile. I wasn't scared or worried anymore. I felt good, like I'd done something important. The cops looked over at me, and the shorter one gave me a nod. Good eye, kid, he said, his voice kind. You helped us out big time. I smiled back and nodded. It felt cool to hear that. By the end of the day, Karen was gone. The cops put her in the back of their car, and it drove off down the street, lights flashing. Her reign of terror, the months of yelling at dogs, scolding neighbors, and making crazy rules, was finally over. No more Karen stomping around like she owned everything. The neighborhood felt quieter already, like a big storm had passed. A few days later, the HOA sent out a letter to everyone. I saw my mom reading it at the kitchen table. Listen to this, Alex, she said, smiling. The letter said there'd be no more silly rules about chalk on the sidewalk. Kids could draw whatever they wanted, as long as it wasn't mean or messy. I grinned when I heard that. My rainbows and dinosaurs were safe. And me? I turned into the neighborhood hero. Kids waved at me when I rode my bike, and grown UPS smiled and said, "Thanks, Alex." I didn't plan it, I was just a kid with a bucket of colors who noticed something weird. But spotting Karen's trouble made me special around here. All it took was some chalk and a good eye, and I'd help make things right. So, there you have it, friends. A nosy Karen thought she could ruin my day with her big, loud voice and silly rules. She thought she was the boss, but guess what? She didn't see me coming. I was just a kid with some chalk, drawing dinosaurs and rainbows, but I turned everything upside down for her. Sometimes, the smallest people like me, or even you can bring down the biggest bullies. Isn't that cool? Think about it. Karen acted all tough, but she was hiding something sneaky. And me? I didn't need to yell or fight. I just kept doing my thing, drawing my pictures, and let the truth come out. So next time someone tries to boss you around or make you feel small, don't worry. Just smile, keep being you, and watch what happens. You never know what secrets they're hiding or how you might turn the tables and surprise them. Life's funny like that. The people who seem big and strong might not be as tough as they think. And the quiet ones like a kid with a bucket of colors might have more power than anyone knows. You don't have to be loud or mean to win. You just have to be smart and brave, even in your own little way. What did you think of that twist? Wasn't it wild how Karen got caught? Tell me in the comments, I want to hear what you liked best. And if you've got a Karen story of your own, maybe about a bossy neighbor or a grumpy grown-up, I'd love to hear it too. Drop it below, and let's share some laughs. Thanks for sticking with me. See you in the next story.